To finish up our series here, we're going to talk a little bit about the bass sound and about the continuous underlying texture, which is coming from over here. I've muted the solo sound and the chords so we can just listen to those two elements without anything else. The bass sound is very simple. There's no sequencing because it's always playing the same note. It comes from this, whoops, wrong scroll. There we go. It comes from this Incubus module, which is an actual synthesizer voice from Volt. This is one of the non-free Volt modules. And all it's doing is playing one note occasionally, and it does have a little modulation here to change its tone, but you hardly notice that. The main thing that's going on is it's getting its gate input from this AND gate over here. And this AND gate has two inputs, both of which are coming from this Bernoulli gate here. This one, let's zoom out and scroll over so we can see it. This one comes from the ×4, the 16th note output of our master clock. This one comes from a divided by 5 output, so that only when the divided by 5 output has an active gate will the bass be able to play. However, I've adjusted the pulse width knob of that output up so that the bass phrases will be somewhat longer when they occur. And that's really all we need to say about the bass sound. The underlying texture for the piece is coming from these two polygonal VCOs over here, which are both being driven by Markov sequence step sequencers. Let's just listen to a little bit of that by itself. Now there's a lot of delay line on that, so the first thing we want to do to hear exactly what's going on is we want to get rid of the delay line. The bottom one is using a delay as an insert effect because I wanted 2 different delay times. So let's zoom in. We'll turn that down, and we will turn down the delay send on this one. Let's listen to it dry. This is not going to be nearly as interesting. So this is the second one. And this is the first one. Now, one of the things you may notice about that is that the rhythm contains some quarter notes and some eighth notes. How is that being manufactured? Well, it's kind of interesting. Both of these receive a steady eighth note clock, or quarter note. No, what is it? Let's find out. Is it a quarter note or an eighth note? It's an eighth note. All right. What happens is that the quantizers only output a trigger when the note changes. And the result is that anytime there's a repeating pitch, we don't hear a new trigger, and so we get a longer note. Listen to that again. That's one essential element. Another essential element is that there is over on the left a Seek3, a standard stock step sequencer. Its outputs are going up to here, here, and here. And the result is that sometimes these sequencers will receive an input from Seek3 that will cause this step to not sound the same as it did before. This is step 5, and that's what happens here. And sometimes you get a little extra push from the Seek 3, so you'll get a different note than before. That's not obvious. You can't really hear it, but that's what's going on. What's interesting about these sequencers is these green bars. This is step 0, and it will go on to step 1 about 50% of the time and go on to step 4 slightly oftener. So it will branch either to here or to here, but it will never go to here or to any of these down here. Step 1 goes to step 2 usually, but occasionally it goes down to step 6. So the result of that is a pattern that cycles among these 8 steps, but with some variation. If we just solo, let's solo the second one and listen to it by itself. You'll notice that I lied to you. This one is getting an 8th note clock. This one is getting a quarter note clock. Nonetheless, it does sometimes change on an 8th note because this value that it receives here in step 5 is liable to be shifting because the Seek 3 is receiving a new step every 8th note. So sometimes step 5 will give you 2 notes instead of 1. Let's put it all back together. Now we're going to listen to them both. We're going to add the delay back in. And there's your texture. So I hope this is not too confusing. If you download the patch, you can play around with it for yourself and possibly get even more confused or whatever. Have fun.